Hey folks, I'm at the Leslie Arms Junction. It might also be known as the Moorland Road mini roundabout and perhaps other local names. But I'm here not to talk about the Leslie Arms, but more specifically to talk about an old Victorian house. Still exists today, but you kind of wouldn't know it was there. Let's go and take a look. I know what you're thinking. He's just pointing the camera at Co-op. Well, yes, technically I am. But behind Co-op is a house once known as Glendalough, possibly Glendalo. This first came to my interest when Denis Bradley sent in some rather wonderful photos of this house and the area behind it, including the pond, following him getting in touch with me about Woodside Court, because his great-grandfather, Dr. John Morrison Hobson, who occupied Woodside Court, actually had this house built in the late 1890s. I would just add for context, so we've got Moorland Road heading to the right, we've got Moorland Avenue, slightly newer road to the left. Someone saying hello. And we've got Lower Addiscombe Road here. This takes us into the Addiscombe shopping area, and that's where Woodside Court once was. And there also used to be a tram line along here that terminated in Addiscombe. Highlight a couple of features here. Stones of Croydon, one of 20 located around the borough, marking the 20 original wards. There's certainly one in Sanderstead near the Gruffy. And also, it'll be rude of me not to point out this rather wonderful drinking fountain with my own shadow in it. Metropolitan Drinking Fountain Cattle Trough Association. Wonderful, nicely planted. Now the first intro to this is a photo that Denis took in about 1969, where the Co-op is still in front of it. And that Co-op structure was actually originally a doctor's surgery, like an add-on to the house. But this is, or was, Glendalo. And as you can see, it's a pretty magnificent structure. There has been some work downstairs. There's a number of key safes by the door. I suggest it's divided up into apartments now. And the windows have been bricked in. In Denis's photo from 1969, the windows still have glass in them on the ground floor. I can only assume that's part of the Co-op structure. And you can clearly see the sort of bolt-on the side that represents the main Co-op store here in Addiscombe. I also want to point out the porchway, because we do have a rather wonderful photo which includes Denis's grandmother. She's the girl in the middle of the three girls on the right, standing in this very porchway. And actually there are quite a few features that still seem to remain. There's a chance they would have been replaced over time, but certainly the main structure that supports the roof there has some sort of carving that appears to be similar to what's in the original photo. Brick walls and steps at the bottom, and again, they may be original. So lovely to see that and to make that link with the past. Windows no doubt would have been replaced over time from the original Victorian sashes, but also the tiles still seem to generally be the same. Some of them may have been replaced with more modern versions, but certainly that pattern, the clay tiles there, seem to be the same. So that's the front of the house. Let's have a look around the side. Trying to get a similar angle to what we have in the picture, although there's a structure here on the left. Balcony on the first floor window above that porch area, that's gone. And what was a window at the ground floor where there's some pipe work going into now, that's been bricked up. I think the structure to the side of it is broadly the same, although it did have some steps leading up and into it, and I can't see exactly what's there today. And the windows obviously have been replaced. If I move the camera down, we can see this is all terrace work, and there's housing on the side here. Back in the day when this photo was taken, there were three young lads sitting on the grass area, pretty much where I'm pointing the camera now. Just passing the time of day, leaves on the trees, I'm suggesting it was summertime. Lovely little image. Another view of the roof. There was a chimney or a flue of some sort in the original photo. Perhaps the purpose of that building has changed now. There are still some steps. I just had a little look over, but not quite the same structure as in the original photo. So that's the side aspect of this wonderful house, formerly known as Glendalough. Now, I know there's a place in Ireland called Glendalough. Don't know what the connection may have been to Dr. John Morrison Hobson, who bought it and no doubt named it. But I also found out, rather weirdly, that there was a ship called Glendalough that took the 11th Hussars to the Crimea for the Battle of the Crimea, the charge of the Light Brigade in 1854. Why am I making that connection? Because Benjamin Beeson, the Sanderstead local hero that I made a video about and I give talks about, was in the 11th Hussars and would have been on the ship, the Glendalough. So a connection between him and what I do today. Worth noting that the first 4 houses here have names and not numbers. And that, I believe, is because of the order in which the houses were constructed here. So now there are houses, there are back gardens, but if I was pointing the camera in this direction in the late 1890s, perhaps early turn of the last century, we would have seen this marvellous fishing pond. And in the next photo, we're looking back at the house, at the side of the house that we just saw. We've got a person in the boat, we've got some possible gardening stuff on one of the ledges. There's a reasonable amount of land between the back of the house and the pond over a couple of levels. But all in all, a really nice scene. So we start to get an idea of the size and scale of the property here. Now, originally this whole area was the moorland estate, and the landowner, Colonel Utterton, had a court case in 1836. The pond at that point was called Lashmar's Pond, and the court case was about rights to access the pond. It was formerly part of common land, and then when the estate was enclosed, it was then a case of, well, who actually owns the rights to that pond, because he felt it was perhaps part of his land. But yes, I've only seen that one reference to Lashmar's Pond. There's a passageway opposite here, Landmore Mews, private road, and this actually went through the pond. So from the junction up the top there, all the way down here, we've still got the house, the land to the back of the house or side of the house, and the pond. So it covered quite a wide area, and we still look even further to find out the boundary as best we can. In the next image, we can see the side of the house. We can also see that there's a pathway on the right-hand side. There was a newspaper article in January 1879 about a number of the ponds in the Croydon area being frozen over, this being one of them, but people were skating on them, and there were 1 or 2 immersions, but it was thought that there weren't too many terrible accidents. Perhaps the water was quite shallow. In the next image, we see tennis court with what looks to be some fencing in front of it to stop tennis balls going into the water with too much regularity or frequency. I guess if you put the ball in the water, it was down to you to fish it out. The tennis court was laid out on the lower level. Remember, I mentioned the different layers that went down towards the water. The Sir Philip Game Recreation Centre, that's just through there. That occupies the site once known as the Cedars, and that originally was the grand house for the moorland estate. And as you can see on the map here, that it occupied what was completely open land, and you can see here the house in the grounds, and then as it is today, the Sir Philip Game Recreation Centre. Now in the next photo, there's a couple of things to call out. Firstly, on the left, I noticed a roller. I think that was being used to roll the path, perhaps as well as rolling the tennis court. And we've got the rowing boat in there. But at the back of the image, there's some house building going on. Looks like a boundary fence, perhaps. Actually, partly looks like the outline of a horse. But I believe that house is one of these here. So we've got 23, 25, 27, 29. This, I would say, is more Edwardian style. And this, with the bay windows, the archways over the doors, is more Victorian. So if I had to put money on it, I would say that 27 and 29 are being built in this image as the first properties. And over time, it would have been a case of filling in the pond, buying up the land and building more property to make this row here. In the next image, more rowing boat activity, but it does appear that the house has been completed. Some of the photos feature Denis's grandmother in the rowing boat, which is a really nice touch. In fact, many of the photos in the pond feature the rowing boat, so it was no doubt a very popular thing. They probably had to fight over it. The next image we have rowing boat alongside the fence, and I believe this fence may relate to the boundary of Moorland Avenue. Moorland Avenue didn't exist until the estate was sold off in the late 1800s. Moorland Road existed, but Moorland Avenue was kind of cut through the estate. And in the next image we have Denis's grandmother with her younger brother Archie. I can't place this completely, but I think it may be the rear of the garden, although I'm not sure where the gate goes to. It could be the front of the garden looking back. There's a shed on the right. The reason I think it may be the rear is I think you can see a faint outline of the house just to the left of Archie in the picture. That's my claim and I'm sticking to it. There's a slight mystery on the final image I have from Denis, and Denis, I'm so grateful for you sending these to me. It really helps to tell the story in a different way. But I believe in this last one, it's a house that existed on the junction of Moorland Avenue and Moorland Road. It's not there anymore. There's a very slight hint. If you look at the shape of the roof on the left, there's a section jutting out. And I think that relates to this property that existed on the corner, that junction, and then the pond as it is. And the house is not really visible from this particular view. We may never know for sure, but that's what I'm offering up as a possible placement. So this was really something that I was delighted to receive from Denis. Continues the story of the area in a slightly different way. And I was kind of intrigued as to how the building took place and how they filled in the pond over time, shining a light on another part of Croydon. It's lovely that Glendalough, the house shell, is still here. It's still being used, still has purpose. Shame about the windows being bricked in, but hey ho. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you like the video, hit like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit subscribe. And if you'd like to support what I do with a small monthly payment, please hit join. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.